wild right here. I couldn't help but think of Luke and his red and blue plug-in light. He was faking to be a cop.
They went to my sister's house on the second Friday night after Nancy went missing at like 7:30 at night.
You know what the second Friday that Nancy went missing was? Friday the 13th. It was the night of Luke's raid.
Developments seem to be moving quickly tonight in Pima County, Arizona. At least 3 people have been detained in connection to Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. The home that authorities are searching right now is about 2 miles from Nancy's house, maybe a bit less. Not much else is known about the events of Friday. There's also been a car that has been impounded, a Range Rover SUV, impounded from a Culver's parking lot. The driver also taken away. They took photos of the inside. They blocked the view of whatever it was that was inside that they were taking photos of. And then they impounded it. They took the driver away and they took the car away. It sure seems like with the FBI involved, it's got to have a connection.
It was raining with hoodies on, black hoodies, and we're tapping on her windows and frantically ringing her doorbell, and she answered it. I don't remember if they asked to come in or if she just offered for them to come in. It was raining and it was cold. And so they went in. I think the male did not take his hoodie off. The female did. They wanted to know if she had a pacemaker, and they wanted to look into her garage. And
okay, so I have a couple thoughts of this. Was that Luke and Kayla together? Or was it really the FBI? So I don't see the FBI tapping on your window. And then my other thought is, if they asked if she had a pacemaker, were they doing a sniff? And did they pick up a signal? And they wanted to see? Or was it Luke and Kayla? Were they looking for another target?
The male did not take his hoodie off. The female did. They wanted to know if she had a pacemaker, and they wanted to look into her garage. And so she was like, okay. I mean, she was alone and was like, sure, of course, you're the FBI. Apparently on her hoodie was just a little FBI emblem up here. Well, then they left. And
so they were in her house.
They were in her house for like 20 minutes. And talking to her, and she was asking questions, and they were kind of vague, and the guy didn't really speak, and he kind of creeped her out.
The guy didn't speak. When do you have an FBI agent not speak?
So they left, and my niece called and said, are you sure they were the FBI? Because we all had discussed about copycat crimes, people posing as police officers, things.
Why were you discussing people posing as police officers? Let's talk about it. Let's say it wasn't the FBI. Do you think that the sheriff or anybody else can tell the homeowner, no, that was really Luke Daly, but don't say anything?
Because we all had discussed about copycat crimes, people posing as police officers, things like that. So she called the 1-800-FBI number, and it was busy, or said they were busy. So she called 911, and within 15 minutes, 10 minutes, there were 7 police cars, 4 FBI agents, said it wasn't the FBI. She was terrified. They swabbed her, fingerprinted the entire house.
So they swabbed her mouth.
They swabbed her mouth.
For DNA, wow.
Yeah, and then were there till the middle of the night, and then just left, and she was terrified.
Okay, so they did that to her house, then they went to Luke's.
Really the breaking news, though, there was a SWAT raid, which I was actually at, which I'll get into the details of in a second. But we know that it is connected to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. They went into a neighborhood about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house in Tucson, and they detained a man and a woman from the house, and they also detained a man from a traffic stop at a Culver's restaurant very close to that house. And I'm told that it's all connected. I'm told that it could be a mother and son who were detained in the house, and maybe the brother at the traffic stop, but they're all connected. And the reason I know this is because I'm told by sources that they were waiting to move on the house until the traffic stop happened. And that this is all connected back to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. So let me back up a little bit. I knew that something was about to go down this afternoon. The search plane was up, which I was told was doing surveillance. And then I found out that the SWAT teams, the Pima County SWAT teams, were going to be staging, preparing for a possible operation tonight.
And they were searching, I live on this street, and then they were searching a street a little closer and a little farther out, and, it's just weird.
So I ended up going out to the two locations where I found out that they were staging. They moved from one location to another one very close to the target's house, which again was only 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house. They moved in on the house in the neighborhood. It was 2 big, like Bearcat SWAT trucks. I would say maybe 24 deputies. Everyone was just a lot of armor. I mean, it was very, very serious. And I was told they were prepared for the worst, really, prepared to have to go in with force. What happened, though, is luckily they didn't have to use any force. When they got to the house, and I was right there, I got into the police perimeter. I don't know how. I think just because me and Mo, you guys know how I am by now. Like, we were right there. We had good sources that led us right there. So we got in there before they put the police perimeter up, and we could tell that they didn't have to use force. The man and the woman surrendered outside of the house, and there was no issue there from what I could tell. And from what my sources are telling me. And at the same exact time, they were able to get a man from the traffic stop who is also connected to the same situation. Again, whether any of this pans out and they are officially, deemed to be part of this Nancy Guthrie investigation, I don't know yet at this point. But I know that this whole operation is connected to the Nancy Guthrie case. So they pulled them out of the house. Or they came out of the house on their own, I shouldn't say pulled out, and now I know that they are conducting a search warrant at the house, which could take quite some time. Initially, it was mostly Pima County deputies, then a cavalry of FBI agents showed up. And I mean, like, a ton of FBI and evidence response unit. They all came into the neighborhood and showed up, and I was told that they were going to be there like all night long doing evidence collection. Now that we know that they have DNA from Nancy Guthrie's house, they can pretty quickly, with the FBI's help, try to match the DNA there and see if this person is involved.
Your home ends up becoming part of this story.
Yeah, well, people were coming to the door and I wasn't necessarily answering it. They might not have even had a camera or anything. And then this one, late afternoon when they came in the big SWAT vehicles, pulled into my driveway and said they wanted to see anything that could link anything. I said, well, yeah, go ahead. I mean, so they were there for about 6 hours. And I was in the SWAT vehicle, and they went through my house and went through everything and tore everything, broke if a door was locked, they would break it open to go see what was in there. There really wasn't anything in there, but it was pretty upsetting. I guess I assumed, because I lived close by or something, but I just said I'd do anything if we could find some clues that might help, but I don't think there's going to be anything in here, but go ahead and look. I mean, I didn't say you can't look. I didn't even think. It was kind of, late in the day. No, I wasn't thinking this was about Luke. I found out it was also about Luke, but initially, no, I was thinking it was all about Nancy Guthrie and finding her and whatnot.
There till the middle of the night and then just left, and she was terrified. So the next day at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she got a call from the large group of FBI agents that were there and said, oh yeah, by the way, that woman was an FBI agent. We don't really know who the guy was, but she was, so you're fine. And she was like,
wait, what? We don't really know who the guy is? The fuck? When did Kayla get taken in? Because I heard that Kayla was arrested at the same time that the Luke raid went on. But then I heard it was also the 12th. Do we know? Because I didn't see it in court documents what day Kayla was picked up.
So the next day at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she got a call from the large group of FBI agents that were there and said, oh yeah, by the way, that woman was an FBI agent. We don't really know who the guy was, but she was, so you're fine. And she was like, no, I'm not fine. I'd like to know exactly what's her name. Tell me more about it. They were in my home. And it's
So why would they have swabbed her and did fingerprints in the whole house?
because I think in the beginning, the two entities weren't talking to each other properly. I think the FBI and the sheriff's department were not communicating. So eventually...
No, that still doesn't make sense. Even if they're not communicating, we don't know who the guy was?
Sheriff's department didn't think it was in the beginning. So that's why they went there and swabbed my sister. And yeah, so that was like a huge red flag.
That it was just disorganized, the whole...
Totally, right? Wouldn't you think that? And then he was rather dismissive to my sister the next day and said, don't worry about it. She's like, but I have questions. And he was like, I'm not at liberty to answer them.
Weird. She sees a guy and then her sister gets swabbed, and there's a lot going on here.
There for how long again?
They were there for probably 3-4 hours, I believe.
Like processing her house, basically?
Yeah.
For finger...
Yeah.
So they thought it was like a fake...
They thought it was a fake FBI invasion, somebody that was casing her. Yeah.
Do know is when we go to the door, we're trained to show our identification. And the identification is a dual placard that opens up and it says FBI on top, and on the bottom, your photo and your name. But it is something that most people have never, ever seen before. So maybe she just didn't notice it or was listening or it was cold out, whatever, and then she invited them in. With their jackets on and with it being cold, you're not going to really see their badge. And we have notoriously small badges to, fingerprint her whole house and all that. And I didn't really understand the bit about the, I mean, maybe you can clarify the bit about the pacemaker. I don't understand what it was about.
Yeah, I don't either. I was wondering what you thought about that. They were asking if she had a pacemaker.
I don't know unless they had some kind of an RF analyzer that can tell you how strong that signal was because they just wanted an answer quickly. But that's odd to me. I don't know what that means. We'll have to wait and see what that means.
So she calls 911 so basically she calls her sister and I think another family member after these two FBI agents leave. And she's like, there was just something weird. There was just something weird about I don't know, especially the guy weirded her out. And it was her sister who said, you should just call the police if you think there's something weird. So she calls 911 and then they respond, and she said with 7 deputies plus more FBI, and she said 4 hours in the house fingerprinting and they said, we don't know who these people were who were in your house.
They took her DNA because they were gonna they were looking for the DNA of the 2 people they thought were possible offenders. Probably, could have been an ERT person with her or someone else that's not a sworn law enforcement officer. I don't know why he didn't take his hoodie off when he got in the house, because in a situation like this, we have to understand that people are freaked out a little bit, and you have to do what you can to sort of calm the situation down. So that will be dealt with. I can guarantee you that. And so they did a buccal swab on her because they were going to compare and contrast her DNA with other DNA that they're pulling out of the house when they were trying to figure out who these fake offenders were, even though they were legitimate. Now, if you consider it, as I said, it's not uncommon for people to come upon anybody, and I mean, it's happened a number of times where fake law enforcement or fake even firefighters show up on scene. Like if you look at, if you recall back to the Palisades fire, there was that fake fireman going around who was trying to get into houses and, to rob them.
There was no way for them to just figure out that it was real FBI sooner?
The only thing I can think of is that those 2 individuals, the FBI personnel, were assigned a block or an area, and they decided to deviate from that slightly, maybe right around the corner. Maybe they were assigned to the very next block and thought, we may as well just hit this house. We're right here and just see what they know. And, I know.
Do you think it goes back to the miscommunication, or not the miscommunication, but the lack of communication between, remember in the beginning, there was some real beef between the FBI and the sheriff's office and the sheriff?
I would say it goes more toward any big investigation. I mean, it sounds like, oh, this is outrageous and everything. But if you took 100 regular citizens and gave them all very clear directions, you would be blown away with how everyone goes in opposite directions and they're stepping over each other. So, you know, if this is the only thing that went wrong at the beginning of something this large, I have no problem with it. Is it a waste of time? Yeah, maybe. Probably. Could they have been doing other things? Yes. But we have to, we have to go through the machinations of whatever needs to be done, and we need to do it quickly. And it's not the greatest outcome, but I'm not surprised, because whenever you're involved in anything big like this, all kinds of stuff always happens.